Richard, what if when we go on a trip, there's only one bed and I forgot my jammies? They're like, Shawn, that's not a what if, that actually happened. We had an Airbnb with one bed.
Yeah, that actually did happen. That for real happened.
Yep. And I was like, oh, don't worry, I'll bring sleeping bags and one of us can sleep on the floor. And we get there and I'm like, oops, I forgot the sleeping bags.
And then I'm like, well, I like to sleep naked.
Shawn, why are you already naked?
Because I'm a good friend. What's up, everybody? I'm Richard.
And I'm Shawn.
And we are speaking the language of bromance. And today, Shawn, we're going to ask and answer ourselves a simple question. What is that question, Shawn? Tell the people. Tell the people in internet land.
Oh, Richard, we want to answer the question. What if? Oh, it's one of our favorite things in the world to do. It's our LOB Movie Pitch. We come up with these ideas and we pitch them, and then we bounce it back and forth. We're like, oh my God, we're making cinematic gold here. You know how many times, Richard, that we've been contacted by, Mr. HBO Max, Mr. Hulu, Mrs. Netflix, Mrs. Amazon Prime?
Oh my God, I turned my phone off.
Yeah.
I turned my phone off like 3 times.
They're on California
just
time.
today.
And I'm in we're in the Midwest, and they call us 10 o'clock their time, which is like midnight, 1 o'clock our time. And it's like, come on, I'm sleeping. Why don't we?
Hey, lay it down.
Yeah. Don't be so desperate.
Stop.
Come out here. Meet us here. Well,
don't be a needy bitch.
Yeah. What's up with that? Huh?
Yeah.
We're not selling. You know why? Because you're being so needy. Come back when you're not so needy.
Yeah.
Tired of these gift
And
baskets.
they didn't come back, and we were like, no, wait.
That is what if our ideas were actually good. No, but so what's interesting about this time too, so I've never done it this way. So whenever we've done a movie pitch, I've always kind of at least got like 6 or 7, I'd say 4 to 6 ideas of like, oh, well, what about this? And then we kind of bounce it off. I had some trouble thinking about what ifs.
I kind of did as well. So that's interesting that we both did. I do have like 2.
I've got one, and I kind of got another one, but I mean, maybe it's kind of, I kind of want to investigate it here a little bit too. So like, I've always been very infatuated by like that question, not just in terms of the Marvel stuff, but in terms of like, there was a episode of Futurama where they had like a what if machine essentially. Do you remember that, where they could look at it and be like, oh, well, if this happened, this...
Yeah, they always did those episodes to be like, let's go to good news, everyone.
What'd they call that machine? It wasn't the what if machine.
Fuck, I don't remember what they called it. I watched a bunch of those episodes. Like, I can't remember off the top of my head.
But I knew that always tickled my fancy because I've been a person that, like, if I had that machine, I would 100% use it and be like, okay, well, what would have happened in my life if I did this instead of this?
Yeah.
Because I'm always curious about that. And like, I got down a weird rabbit hole with this, thinking about, because I think that's probably why I didn't come up with specific what if like storylines, because I was too busy thinking about like my own life with a what if scenario.
Okay.
So like, if you look at my life, Richard, so this is like, what if Shawn did different things? My life has been pretty spread out, like my big events. So each one could have had a very dramatic effect on like the outcome of my life. So like you think of like, like, cause like meeting you was like later in life, right? Like we weren't like grade school friends or high school friends.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, we were both in our 20s.
Yeah. And like my significant other, Tiffany, like I didn't meet her until later in life. So anything early on would have drastically like split that timeline, and I would have never met Tiffany. So
yeah,
the first one I really kind of thought of is like, so like me, I always wanted to go to the University of Kentucky, right? That was, I don't even know if you knew that.
I actually did not know that.
So when I was younger, I wanted to go to the University of Kentucky. It was So
I did not know that at all.
I applied to the school I went to, which was in our hometown, and I was pretty close to applying to University of Kentucky as well, but I stopped because there was like a fee you had to pay for it. And like I was like on the border of what they require to get in. And so it's kind of like
can I ask why? Can I ask what the why is?
I've always been a fan, and my grandpa's originally from Kentucky. So there was just kind of like I wouldn't say like a family calling, but it was kind of like maybe this is where I should go because that's kind of where my grandpa was born and raised. But like if you think about like the what if scenario, if I would have applied there and went there, my whole like trajectory in life would have completely changed, right? I would have never met you. I would have never probably met, gone through my first marriage. I would have never met my current wife. Like, you think about an event like that and it just completely like just changes the course of your life traumatically, right? What happens if I went there and I'm like, oh my God, you know what I love to do? Freaking party and cocaine.
Oh, well, I think you'd be a much more fun person. Number one.
But, it's like things like that. Or like if I go back even further, it's like, well, what would have happened if I would have tried harder at like baseball? Like would I have, because I was on the baseball team at my college for a week.
What if you were a country music star?
Oh, great point. Like what if I pushed myself harder to learn how to play guitar?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just interesting things to think like, like I think everybody looks at it too like, oh my God, if I would have pushed harder at this thing, I could have been a famous musician or I could have been like a famous
and like it's all like I think that the thing with that comes down to like the presupposition that if you practice and work really hard at something, then you're gonna be like amazing at it. And I think that gets you to a point. Like let's say, what was it? Longer than that. Probably like 6 years ago. I was like, probably 7 or 8 years ago. I was like, man, Shawn, I heard about this. There's this really cool thing going on, and it's called Twitch. And these people play video games and they stream them, and then people give them money. They subscribe to their channel. I'm like, I think I could do something like that. And so, am I like particularly good at video games? No, I'm really not. But you ask yourself like, well, if I had if I worked really hard at it, would 7 years later, would I be in a situation where like it's my main source of income? Like I sit and stream for 8 hours a day. And you know what? Like if I think about it, I don't know if that's the case. I mean, it could have been, but there's a large part of me that feels like that would not happen.
Yeah, because
it has some partly part of it is like work hard and be consistent and stuff like that. But like there's a large part of it that comes down to just dumb fucking blind luck. Mm-hmm.
Well, like the Marvel what ifs, I think they didn't like have things change and like everything was for the better. Like the first episode kind of did that, but like the things I mentioned. Well, what happens if I would have put all this effort into being some type of musician and I really wasn't that good? And all of a sudden I've basically wasted like 20 years of my life chasing like basically chasing the dragon kind of thing, right? Like chasing a dream that can't happen. Or like if I decided to keep going at baseball, but my schoolwork took a big hit from that. And then I become bitter because of like all of that stuff, Like I think everybody thinks like, oh, if I would have done this differently, I could have been this thing. It's like, or you could have like went completely the opposite way and really kind of like screwed your life up chasing something.
Well, I mean, like, okay, like let's say you did get really good. I mean, let's say you were a really good, like at this point in your life, you were this like really good musician. That doesn't necessarily mean that you would be a very famous / wealthy musician. Mm-hmm. You might just be somebody that, plays a show here and there, and everybody knows that you're really good.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily translate into wealth and fame.
Yeah, and then you're 35 or 40 and you're basically like, all right, well now I really have to find like a real job because
I mean, how many really good musicians do you know that just didn't that just that are still considered like undiscovered gems. Like even look at your Spotify playlist, and there's tons of bands and stuff, like bands and musicians and artists that like you like, but they might not necessarily be but they're not popular.
Well, shoot.
and they're probably not wealthy.
Go to any like ball game and like they're like, this is the so and so officer from the police department singing the national anthem, and they sing it like that is like the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. And it's like, well, yeah, that's, I mean, like I have a really great voice. There's not much I can do with it. And then that makes me sad because it's like that should be a famous musician, and that doesn't happen.
But they're not.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's kind of like I didn't really get a chance to think too much on like specifics from shows and stuff to What If, because I thought what ifing my life was more interesting.
And it made me sad.
It did. Because I try to think like, like my dad and mom, like they got like their like big life events all happened before they were 22. So like anything you kind of change like after that point for them, their timeline would obviously shift a little bit, but since all that stuff happened in such an early part of their life, that anything they would do would have had to been even further back. But with like me, everything is so spread out that like, I have some stuff that could change in high school, then like 5 years later, college. And then you even go 5 years later into like those specific events completely changed my life. And I guess my folks, it could have been like, like my dad could have been like, you know what? I don't want to be in Quincy anymore. I want to, move to Texas and, work on big rigs or something like that. That would have altered his life completely. But yeah, and and I guess that kind of ties to like a little bit of like, when you look at the things that they talked about in the What If specifically, is like they had some things that were like very tiny. Like the Captain America one was like a specific look, and it changed the trajectory of that whole universe.
Yeah.
But and I get it. It's kind of tough for me to pinpoint those. And I think you have to think way outside the box to make it work. And so I guess I'll go with the only one I had, which was in Clerks. What if Dante didn't go to work that day?
Well, okay. So playing that out, like if he didn't go to work that day, then you know what? I don't know how. Okay. If he didn't go to work that day. So now, like you say that, now I'm like running through the entire movie in my head. So the very beginning, he is hanging out with his girlfriend, and then they get into that argument. Now, did that argument, honestly, like, I feel like the beginning, the part like him having the argument with his girlfriend and, her sucking 37 dicks, like, I think that still would have happened.
Yeah,
it just would have happened. It would have happened someplace else.
Yeah. I think the big thing in there is, so if he missed that call, I guess is the better way to put it. So what if Dante missed the phone call to come into work? He wouldn't have seen the announcement of his ex-girlfriend getting married. So he wouldn't have reached out to her that day.
Yes.
She wouldn't have had sex with a dead corpse.
Right.
Or would that guy still be alive because he didn't get the nudie magazine and have a heart attack?
I mean, yeah, I think that one's kind of up for debate, because you could say that guy had a heart attack. Like maybe somebody else came to work and that guy would have had a heart attack in the bathroom regardless.
That's tough. So like, where do you see him in? Because it goes into like bigger. Like, so would he be in Clerks 2, or would he still be working at the Quick Stop?
He would still be working at the Quick Stop. Yes,
because he didn't get fired. Well, no, I guess he died at the very, very end.
Well, in the alternate ending, he died.
Yeah. How do they explain, why does he work at the movies in Clerks 2? They never really talk about that, do they?
No, they do. Because the place burned down.
Oh, that's right. The very
beginning of Clerks 2, he opens the door and the place is on fire.
So that still would have happened, probably.
Yeah.
Because he left the coffee pot on.
So really, the only thing... So I guess, the only thing that really would have happened is... he would have Like maybe that guy wouldn't have died.
At least not like in the bathroom.
I don't know. Like I don't know how much. I don't know if anything would really change.
I think just him seeing his ex-girlfriend. There probably would have been more
him
delay on
seeing
that.
His ex-girlfriend. Yes, that wouldn't have happened.
And that would
him
make sense.
seeing his ex-girlfriend.
But I mean, if you like, what
he
if
wouldn't have gone? He wouldn't have gone to that funeral.
He might have went by
Randall
himself.
was the one that Randall was the one that told him about.
Oh,
it.
that's right. Yeah. So yeah, he wouldn't have gone to the funeral because I didn't really get like Dante and Randall hang out like outside of work, so he wouldn't have seen him that day.
Actually, he might have seen Caitlin because Caitlin came into town because she knew that he was going to go ballistic when he saw the announcement.
Oh, so you know what? In this what if scenario, they might actually end up together.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Because
so then in Clerks 2, he wouldn't have done anything with Rosario Dawson because he would have probably been married to, well, I mean, maybe, who knows, but there's a chance that he would have been married to Caitlin Bree.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because the reason they didn't hang out the whole time is because he had to work, which he wasn't supposed to work that day. So he could have actually cheated.
He would have gone to that hockey game and then gone home and chilled out, and then she would have showed up and
and then he could have cheated
because she came by the house because she was like, how did you know I was here? And she said, your mom told me.
That's right. Yeah. So she could have shown up at the house and hung out in his room, and he could have cheated on his girlfriend right there.
Right there.
Yep. And then him and his girlfriend would have broke up. And then he may have ended up with his ex, or he could have gone like, oof. Could you imagine like even more depressed Dante?
He would have ended up with one of those two girls and not Rosario Dawson.
Yeah. Do you think that'd be better for Dante?
More than likely. I don't know.
I'm really
probably not, because I think it seemed like, especially Caitlin was content with him just the way he was. Veronica was not content with, like, Veronica was trying to get him to do other stuff. He probably would have still been friends with Randall, and they probably still would have gone to the movies together.
God, so do you wonder?
So really, I think the only big change would have been Dante's like love life.
Yeah, well, no, because so this I'm kind of thinking this now. So he wouldn't have gone to work that day. Maybe Caitlin, right? That was his ex-girlfriend?
Yeah.
So Caitlin would have shown up. Maybe like nothing crazy happens, but he also doesn't have the 37 dick conversation with Veronica, which she probably was still pushing him to go to college. So he may have actually gone to school then. And later in the school, after they've been together even longer, found out about the 37 dudes. And since he'd been with her in a longer period of time, that became less of an issue.
Yeah, but I think he more than likely would have gone to Caitlin than Veronica.
Do you think Caitlin was really going to go for him though? Or do you think that was more of like, I got a little bit of cold feet?
I think Caitlin probably would have been with him for a little bit and then dumped his ass.
And then would he have gone back to Veronica then?
Not at that point, because she would have been like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
I've moved on.
We don't learn anything about her.
You left me for fucking what's her face?
Veronica's. Oh wait, so Clerks 2. She does not appear in a sequel, but Randall mentions her in a deleted scene, accusing Dante of only going to college because Veronica forced him to do so. This implies Dante and Veronica got back together after the events of the first film, but subsequently broke up.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that's canon or not. She's the person that played her's passed away, right? Or is it the person that played Caitlin's passed away?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
I'd be curious if they touch on that in Clerks 3.
I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, that's actually kind of fun that we ran through that, because that's kind of like the what if scenario, right? Like you're like, well, it's just a small thing, right? He doesn't go to work, but like all these miniature things. So it's what's crazy is like there's when Tiff and I first started dating, like, I had a lot of those like, man, maybe I should have done this, or what if I'd done this? It's by Hootie. Darius Rucker, right? Is that Hootie?
Yeah. That's Hootie.
He's got a song that I can't remember what the name of it is, but basically it's like all these little things brought me to this. Oh, the song's called This. Good song. But I mean, she's kind of like, hey, like everything in our lives has brought us to this moment together. And so any insequential thing, you're like, well, that's not a big deal, but can like snowball, pun intended, to anything like to just enormous difference in your life. But yeah, that was the one I kind of thought of was like a Clerks type thing.
Okay. Okay, Shawn. Here's one I have, and this is I guess this is more of like a I don't know, like this is much more of an open-ended thing, and it doesn't really have so much to do with a movie or a show specifically. I mean, it does in like a meta sense, I guess, but like, so here's my what if question. What if Buffy had stayed dead?
You got to say end of the world, right?
I mean, you would think, but then again, like, would it? Because Xander and Willow and Tara and to a degree Spike, like they were all still in Sunnydale.
Yeah.
And they were all still fighting monsters. And they were all still like fighting the good fight. Like Giles wasn't around, but they were all still like, doing stuff. Cause I mean, okay, like think about this. Okay. So who was the ultimate uber villain in season 6? It was Willow. And why was it Willow? Because she was all pissed because what's her face? Because her girlfriend, Tara, got shot.
By the 3 bads.
Yeah.
Which that technically would have still happened though, right? Because were they going after Buffy? I'm trying to remember.
They were, because at the end, Warren, not the end, but at the end of that, Warren shows up and he's the one, and he starts shooting because he's trying to shoot Buffy.
So that whole event, so they would have been like 3 bad guys, but they wouldn't have been trying to kill anybody, so that event wouldn't happen.
Which means that Willow wouldn't have gone crazy, because that was what I mean. There was that scenario where she was getting like into like darker magic and stuff like that, but she didn't go like full on crazy and homicidal until Tara died.
Yeah, because she reached out to, I don't remember who that gatekeeper was, but like she actually hurt
Osiris.
Yeah, she hurt that dude or whatever. I think it's non-gendered.
Yeah.
But, so who was the big bad in season 6?
I mean, it was those 3 guys, and then at the end, and then
I think it's season 7.
It was the first evil, and the whole reason that he came back was because since they brought Buffy back, then that allowed him to start killing the other Slayers.
Oh, because he was So you'd still only have.
He wouldn't have. He would have just not. He would have not done anything.
Yeah, so you really wouldn't have had any big bads at that point, right? So you probably would actually have all the mainstays from the Scooby group and Buffyverse just go and start helping either Angel, or they would have split off and kind of started doing their own investigation type thing.
And they would have stayed in Sunnydale because Sunnydale would have still been there.
Yeah. So Xander would still have his eye. Xander would actually probably become like a watcher. I would be my guess. He kind of does in the comics, but
maybe.
I think he might have got like actually sent to that. Oh yeah, that's an interesting question. So what? So would that?
Spike would have not gotten his soul.
True. So you'd still have bad Spike, although he had the chip in his head.
Well, I mean, he was bad, but he wasn't like I'm gonna try and end the world bad.
Priscilla.
I mean, he was still a vampire. True enough, but he was fighting with everybody.
Yeah, because that's the only thing he could fight was the bad stuff. So he got his jollies that way. Well, that's a good question. Yeah, I bet you would see like post college, like one of them would go and start working with Angel, I think, just to get a gig. Which I would say Willow. I think Willow would team up with Angel and start working there, and then Xander would become a watcher.
Okay. Okay. So you're saying that they would have just left Sunnydale? All of them would have left Sunnydale?
I think
Nobody would stick around?
I think so. Because, I mean, it was kind of...
Because the Hellmouth's still there.
Yeah, but there's Hellmouths all over. And they kind of...
There's one in Cleveland.
Sunnydale kind of got under control after that season 5. I mean, there were still vampires and stuff. But for the most part, it was... I mean, they got rid of the mayor. They got rid of, like, all the really big bads. I mean, when you think about, like, the season 6 big bads were just 3 dorks who had, like, you know, some access to bad stuff. They had, like,
robots and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, if they're not really fighting after Buffy, like, maybe they run Sunnydale in, like, a really, like, goofy way. Like, they become...
Well, not even that. I think that, honestly, what I think is I think Willow and Xander would have stayed in Sunnydale and just, like, you know, kept doing what they were doing.
Maybe.
Or Willow and Tara and Xander would have stayed in Sunnydale and kept doing what they were doing.
I could see that. When did... Was Xander...
And then Giles would have stayed in England. And then Spike probably would have stuck around. Okay. Here's the question, though. What would have happened? And this is something that they didn't really answer in season 7, but I would assume had happened, right? Is wouldn't there have been another Slayer?
I think there was, wasn't there?
Well, there was Faith.
Yeah.
Because Buffy died at the end of season 1, and then Faith got Slayer powers, right?
Well, there was one
Buffy
before
dies.
that.
There was Kendra.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then she died, and so then Faith showed up.
Oh, well, Faith was still alive. Yeah, so Faith was the quote-unquote chosen one, because she never died. Once Faith dies, then the next Slayer would get chosen.
But Buffy, but what I'm saying is, so you have Buffy and then Kendra, right? So then Kendra dies, so then Faith replaces Kendra.
Mm-hmm.
So then Buffy dies, wouldn't somebody replace Buffy?
I think she was out of the line of Buffy lineage at that point.
Oh, I get what you're saying. She's out of sequence. She's the odd man out.
Yeah.
So when she dies, she just dies.
Exactly.
So then, should Faith have broken out of prison and gone to Sunnydale?
Well, she did. When did Faith go? Faith was in prison at this point, right?
Yes.
So, well, the only reason she came out is because people were trying to kill her in prison, and Angel got her out.
She can't. She got out before because Angel went bad. And Wesley went to get her out of prison.
But they sent her back, right? Because in season 7, she talks about, like, people in the yard trying to kill her with weird marks on them.
Right. But that was because of the first and the whole season 7 story arc.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that Wesley came and was like, hey, Angelus is around. And so Faith's like, okay, well, I guess I got to get out of prison. And so then she broke out of prison. She went to help Angel, and then after that, then she went with Willow back to Sunnydale, and then she was in Sunnydale for season 7 of Buffy.
Didn't she go back though? I feel like I think she went back to prison after all the Angela stuff, because I think she got back out. Because
Willow came. Because she broke out of prison, and then she did the whole Angelus thing, and then they were all hanging out in the hotel, and then Willow shows up, and then at the end of that whole nonsense, then Willow and Faith left together to go back to Sunnydale.
Because that's where these were going side by side. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So she gets broken out. So she would still get broken out of prison if we think the Angelus thing would still happen.
Right. But after that, then she possibly would have gone back to Sunnydale and just been the Slayer in Sunnydale.
Maybe. Yeah.
Because she still would have been in Los Angeles with Wesley and everybody, and then Willow still would have shown up.
Well, she only showed up because of the first evil, right?
No, she showed up in Willow showed up in Los Angeles because Fred called her.
Okay.
So Willow still would have shown up, and then Faith probably would have left with Willow back to go back to Sunnydale.
But the only reason,
but there would have been no first evil. It just would have been like, so it would have been Faith and Xander and Willow and Spike, and they all would have hung out and had kooky adventures and solved crimes.
But I don't know. I think they kind of was a enemy my enemy type of thing, because I don't think they trusted Faith at that point, right? So if she would have shown up, do you think they would have? Because there's no like dire need to have Faith in.
You're right. They probably wouldn't have. But like, what the fuck else is Faith gonna do?
I mean, go back to prison. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she could have gone back to prison
because she wouldn't have had. She wouldn't have had the scenario of like the people with the markings trying to kill her.
Right.
So she probably would have went back to prison. But
I mean, she possibly could have gone back to prison. I more like the idea of her going back to Sunnydale, because then you have that weird dynamic of like, oh, we don't really like Faith because she tried to kill us all, but like she's got cool Slayer powers, and then Xander would be like, oh my god, I tried to fuck that girl.
No, she did.
Oh yeah. Then Xander would be like, oh my god, we had sex once, and then
that girl took my virginity.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I think I like that too, because then you get the redemption story. So then you get like a really cool season 7, and then like maybe you do tie in something with that. Yeah, I like that. I do like that idea. God, I wish there was a Faith show.
Oof! If only.
I know they were going to do that, weren't they? They were going to do a spinoff.
I thought they did. Didn't they do a Faith comic?
Yeah, there's a
Faith.
Was
just her.
Yeah, there's a Faith comic, and I think there's a Faith and Angel comic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right.
But then everybody's like, "Hey, do you want to do a Faith TV show?" And she's like, "Well, I mean, Joss Whedon's an asshole." I'm like, wait, what? She's like, "Oh, nothing."
I'll tell you later.
Yeah, I'll tell you in 20 years, 15 years.
Yeah.
God, Joss Whedon,
something like that.
Jerk face. Yeah, that's my what if now. What if Joss Whedon wasn't such an asshole?
Then we would have gotten to season 6 of Angel.
I've got a YouTube video of James Masterson doing an interview talking about. The thing is like it's like James Masters talks about like if he knew about Joss Whedon's like conduct on set, and so I'm kind of curious if he like beats around the bush or if he does kind of like what's the lady's name that played Cordelia Chase?
Oh my god, I can't think of it right now off the top of my head.
What her name is?
Christina Carpenter.
Yeah, because I mean, like all that started coming out, and so like she like didn't beat around the bush. It's like no, he was an asshole, and he was an asshole. Charisma Carpenter. And so I wonder if James Masterson beats around the bush, or if since like it's basically like easy to be out, or it's not easy. It's like you're kind of safe in a Hollywood sense to speak your mind on it now because he's kind of been blackballed. That you can, he's like, if he's actually going to say like what happened.
Well, I think Nicholas Brendan, the guy that played Xander, I think he like said some shit about it.
Yeah, he's in a rough spot right now too. I think he just got arrested.
I think
again.
he was like, I think he said some shit about it. I don't know if Allison Hannigan did or not.
I haven't heard. I know. I think
she's married to Wesley.
Yeah, that's true.
And like Wesley was still like they were still like really like Wesley did parts on the Avengers.
Well, Wesley and Allison
he was
Hannigan,
in the Avengers 1 and 2.
Wesley and Allison Hannigan were in the Much Ado About Nothing.
Yeah.
So I mean, they were still closely tied to him.
Like they were still all pretty tight.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I don't know.
That always makes me feel icky.
Yeah. I
always kind of go like to the Ryan Reynolds where they're like, "Are you going to put your kids into the show business?" And he's like, "No." And they're like, "Why?" He's like, "Because I love my kids."
So yeah, I would argue that if Buffy had stayed dead, that the overall story of the Buffy verse would probably be better off.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like any of the like supernatural and stuff like that. Whenever they bring somebody back from the dead, like nothing good happens.
Well, I just mean I mean you're right, but I'm also saying that I think the overall quality of the story might be better.
Yeah, I could see that.
Because then you have like, and it might just be because I'm explaining like new dynamics and new directions, and so like it sounds cool because it's fresh and new. But I would probably argue that I think that the overall story arcs might be better.
Oh, shit. You know what you've just created with that? You've created like the Doctor Who of Vampire Slayer. So you could have done like Faith the Vampire Slayer and did like 2 or 3 seasons of that. And then bring in...
Oh my God, you're right.
Bring in a new Vampire Slayer every couple of years.
Yeah, and that show could have gone on for 50 fucking years.
Yeah. I would be down for that. That's the what if I want. What if they actually made that like Doctor Who?
Yeah.
I mean, it would work.
You know what? Yeah.
Because, I mean,
obviously it's not the same. It's not the exact same person. Because that's the thing with Doctor Who is it's always like, well, you know, I'm the same person, just different.
No, yeah. It'd be like, so basically like you would know at some point in time. And that'd actually be kind of like very much edge of your seat. Like at the end of each season, like you don't know, like they could die and could be gone. And then you're going to get a new Slayer like the next year.
They would be much more expendable.
Oh, man, Joss Whedon, if you weren't such an asshole, we would pitch this to you. But no, that would be good. I like that idea because you could go all over the world too at that point, and it's like almost an origin story every couple of years, so you can reintroduce people to what this Vampire Slayer origin is.
You could go and you could just, you know, go into all kinds of different fucking lore and shit, like lore about the Watchers, lore about the Slayer, and you wouldn't have to worry about like any like big overarching like apocalyptic type of stuff because it's all more self-contained. Yeah.
God, that'd be
well, and not even that. Like, I mean, you could have more end of the world kind of things, but it would span more of the world.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we've got to get to Tokyo because fucking this thing's going to explode. And we're in Dubai.
Yeah, because it's always kind of funny. Like, she just so happened to be in the one place that was the only place.
All this shit was happening.
Yeah. That I always feel like that with like Supernatural and those shows where it's kind of like, it's like, oh my God, this is like, if there's this like apocalyptic event in this one place, you know there's more out there. Like, what's happening in Georgia right now? Like, is there something that's going on there or Cleveland?
Well, it's not even that. You ever notice that like everything in Supernatural is always like a you know, like an 8-hour drive or less.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're in the middle of the country, so that's how they justify it.
Everything is like you know, a hard night's drive away.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have a little bit of that, but that's where I say like you get more self-contained things where like they wouldn't be in. So like they could be like, oh my God, you could do like a lot of the vampire RPG type stuff. So they would go into like Chicago, and they'd spend a season in Chicago dealing with like a certain like group of vampires.
Yeah,
because you get into that lore. Like essentially, it's like you have like certain seasons where they're like basically trying to infiltrate like these vampire family type things.
Yeah.
Oh man,
you could tie it. You could tie it back. You could tie it to Angel every now and again. And
what that opens up you to is even more of that type of stuff. So you can find like the different type of Xanders or these different kind of like hunters. Shoot, you do almost like a not really crossing over, but you find like maybe in a certain season they're teaming up with like Supernatural-esque type hunters, and you have that whole type of thing. Ooh, that'd be good.
You know, actually, I would give credit to Supernatural because at least with Supernatural, shit was happening in other places. And with Buffy, everything was happening in one town. Yeah. Like everything was like a 20-minute drive.
Yeah.
Or a brisk walk, a brisk walk through the town square.
Well, and they kind of sell it at first because, like, oh, there's a Hellmouth here. But then at the end, they're like, well, there's one in Cleveland. It's like, well, how many are there?
Yeah. Yeah, if I'm a big bad evil guy, I'd be like, fuck this, I'm gonna go to Cleveland. There's nobody in Cleveland.
Yeah, you just do a quick scan, like send some people's like, is the Slayer in Sunnydale? Yeah, okay, well, what about
I'll
Cleveland?
Go end the world in Cleveland.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I feel like that kind of tracks more, doesn't it?
And this is like the early 90s, 2000s. It's gonna take her like a day and a half to get there. You can do all you need to do in that time period.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Man. Ooh, I like that idea. I think that's one of my favorite pitches so far.
Really?
A Doctor Who-esque. Okay. Well, because I always I kind of got there by thinking of like American Horror Story, where each season is very much self-contained. And I was like, oh, that'd be cool with Buffy. And I was like, oh, you could do Faith the Vampire Slayer. And like, what do you do after that? I'm like, well, shit, you just start doing like the Slayer.
Danielle the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah. Roberta the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
And what's cool about that is you can start like you can look at like different, like you were talking about cultures and stuff. Like, you know, you can go to these different countries and get very different slayers. You know, so you kind of see like, you know, a Muslim vampire slayer. You can see like, you know, a Israeli vampire slayer. You can see.
Oh, see, and the Watchers Council would still be around, so you could have them as like almost like an antagonist. Where like the Slayers are like, you know, like fuck these old white men, you know, that are telling us what to do and shit like that. Just like, you know, because we want to do like what Buffy did, where she told you guys to fuck off.
Yeah.
And then the Watchers are like, no, you got to listen to us. And then Giles is fucking caught in the middle.
Were they all British? Were all the Watchers British?
It seemed like. I don't know if they actually were, but
yeah, I like that idea.
Because like in Supernatural with the whole like Men of Letters thing, it'd be like that.
Yeah, very much so. Oh, yeah, because this would be a post-Watcher type thing. So you could have factions of Watchers.
Well, the Watchers would still be there. Because remember in season 7, the whole first blew him up.
That's true.
Because they were all together and he blew him up. So the Watchers would still be around. However, like the whole concept of But Buffy was like, you know, fuck you guys. I get out of my life.
So how would you?
And then Faith would obviously be like, you know, I'm not dealing with you fuckers. Like the first 2 Watchers you sent to take care of me tried to kill me.
That's true. And then one tried to have sex with her. Wasn't Giles? No, Giles was trying to have sex with Cordelia. That's what it was.
No, Wesley was trying to have sex with Cordelia.
Giles. Oh yeah, sorry. Giles was only trying to have sex with Buffy's mom. But no, yeah. So I feel like this is a reboot type of thing. So like you start it up, it's the Vampire Slayer. And everybody's like, well, that's silly. Why didn't they put Buffy in it? You do season 1 with Buffy. At the end of season 1, you kill Buffy. And then you can bring on like Faith as your next Vampire Slayer.
Sure.
And so everybody's like, oh my God, are they going to bring her back? And that's how you start putting in like the Doctor Who stuff. Just like how Doctor Who, the very first season, you have the one Doctor. It's the only season he ever did. And then it's a different one.
Yeah.
And so the Watchers, like you said, they would exist, but maybe you do like different factions where like they have territories. So
because like even in Doctor Who, like Doctor Who was a Time Lord, and then there was a whole planet. There was the planet Gallifrey that was full of Time Lords, and and they had, you know, the High Council of Gallifrey and stuff like that. So it'd be, I mean, kind of the same thing. Oh my God! Oh wait, what if now? Because remember there was that one episode of Angel where there was a Slayer that went fucking crazy.
Yeah. She was she was one of the potential Slayers that got her power with all the stuff.
Yeah, she got her powers, but she was fucking crazy, and so then she was like killing people and shit.
Ooh, you have like a season of that.
Yeah.
Oh,
because then you'd have like Xander and Willow and Tara and Giles.
So would you
and Spike and Angel, and they're all like trying to like, what are we going to do? There's a crazy fucking Slayer on the loose.
Well, I kind of like it like almost in that season where you slowly sprinkle that in. So you think she's doing the right thing, fighting people.
Yeah.
So and
then it turns out that she's fucking a bitch.
Well, she's not a bitch. She's got trauma in her life.
That she's like evil.
Not evil. I kind of liked how they did that one where it was something traumatic that happened. And so like you've got somebody who's dealing with like this post-traumatic stress, and then all of a sudden you get injected with like these superhero powers.
Yeah.
So like with that season, you would almost like, it'd be like, what's the, I didn't kill my wife.
The Fugitive.
So it'd almost be like a Fugitive type season or Prison Break where you see her like trying to outrun the law, and like her Watcher is trying to like catch her. So it's like this weird, like, what the fuck's going on? Like, is the Watcher bad? And that's what you find out in the end, is that she's actually like, yeah, she's like somebody who's like the people she thinks she's killing.
Because that's kind of like how, yeah, because I mean, that's very similar to, I mean, that's kind of similar to like Faith's whole story.
Oh, yeah. She was a little bit more, she wasn't, because the one that was crazy thought she was killing, she thought Spike was the one that hurt her.
Yeah.
But like Faith was like trauma, but she kind of knew what she was doing.
Right. And then, I mean, she ended up working for bad guys. She ended up working for the mayor. There was that.
Yeah. Man, that's a great idea. That's a gold idea. Like, you tell me you put that on Netflix or Hulu or Paramount Plus.
Oh my God. If you put that on you put that on a streaming service, like, we're bringing back like all these fucking, like, we're doing I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if you call it a Buffy reboot. You just call it like, you just call it the Slayer.
Yeah. I'd say you call it the Vampire Slayer. I think you want to put that in there, because the Slayer sounds too metal. It's like, what is this? Is this like America's Next Top Metal Band? But yeah, and I would do like 6 to 8 episodes, like do short episodes on these. So you can do like 2 seasons a year.
Oh yeah, like almost like little novellas.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! So that way you don't have a lot.
Because then, since you're only doing like 6 to 8, you can like shoot the production budget through the fucking roof.
Man, Richard, what if?
So they'd be like really like, you could shoot them like almost like cinematically.
Yeah, out about like 45 minutes to an hour long.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, and I love that too. Then like that's what you do. Like, you try to figure out, like, because again, if you know there's 2 seasons coming out in a year, when that season's almost over, you're like, well, is this person going to die or not? Like, am I going to get a new Slayer, or am I not, or is this going to be my Slayer in season 2? And even then, in like those seasons, you know, you could have the traumatic event happen in like episode 2 or 3. So your season that you're watching, you're like, oh, well, this is my Slayer for the season. Episode 2, they're gone, and you get a new one right then.
Not even that. Oh my God. What if you did this? You have a 6-episode arc, right? First 2 minutes, episode 1, boom, Slayer dies. And then you just like the whole rest of it is everything leading up to that moment. So then you're watching the whole series going, she's going to die. She's going to die. She's going to die.
I like that. You couldn't do that, I think, all the time. I think that'd be a good, like,
no. You just do it as like a one-off season.
Ooh, that's how you kick the series off with Buffy.
Yeah.
So you do 2 seasons. It's Buffy, and you see her die in the first 2 minutes.
First 2 minutes, you fucking kill Buffy. Oh my God, that's perfect. And then you just have 6 episodes of like, this is everything leading up to the moment she died.
Well, I think you would put like so if you did the 12 episodes a year, kind of 2 seasons, you do that, and you kind of lead the first season, so she's still alive, and it happens in season 2. And you make it so kind of like blurred that like during season 2, you're like, well, I remember seeing that, but it didn't happen in season 1. You know, well, is it like way in the future? And then like somewhere in like episode 4 or 5 is when it happens.
Okay.
I like that. Or something like that. I mean, you got to spitball it, of course.
Yeah.
Man, Richard, what if like HBO Max and Hulu or Paramount Plus actually did call us?
Who owns?
WB, I think, still owns it.
WB. So it'd be on HBO Max. It would be an HBO Max show.
20th Century Studios, Fox. So it's Disney. Disney owns it now. So it'd be Disney Plus.
Okay, so it'd be a Disney thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Huh.
They wouldn't want that much
I don't know
murder.
if this would. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if that would fly on Disney Plus.
Probably not.
Because I'm thinking, oh my God, you could even do it if you put it on a streaming service, you could do it R-rated.
Yes. Oh, you got your Vampire Slayer cussing.
Oh.
But what I love about that too is it's a practice in like, you know, character development too, because you could have a like a very like religious, but a very religious Slayer, right? That's almost like a goody two shoes. And then you can have like a Faith that's like, nope, fuck this, leather pants, I'm fucking killing everything, and dropping like F-bombs and like, I love it. Well, I wasn't sure where we're gonna get, but I think we got where I wanted to.
But here we are.
But yeah,
at
so
the end. Do
you have any other kind of what ifs you want to tackle? I felt like that kind of.
The only other one You know what? No, I'm gonna hold it. I'm holding it.
Okay.
I'm holding on to it. We'll save that. We'll save it for later.
I like it.
Yeah, that's how we do. That's how we do. We tease.
Yeah.
There's your tease.
Just wait till 2 minutes of the next episode.
We just like gave you an entire fucking universe worth of content. Like, if you're not happy, like, get over it.
Doctor.
We just gave you a whole. We gave you a whole meal for you to shove in your mouth. Like, excuse us that we're holding back, the after dinner mint.
Yeah, we created a Doctor Who thing that is for Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Doctor Who ran for like 50 plus years. It's still going.
Yeah.
So your great grandkids are going to be watching that show. Well, I guess then if we're tidying this up, Richard, what do you have for some Richard's closing thoughts?
I think that when you ask anyone the question, what if? I think that there is no better question to get somebody's mind going and get down a rabbit hole than that question. Not just about like movies or television or games or pop culture or whatever, but just, even about like their own life. Well, what if you did this instead of this? Like there is no easier way to get someone lost in their own, in a sea of their own thoughts. Mm-hmm. Than that simple question.
Yep, because there's no right answers, there's no wrong answers, there's just lots of answers.
Yes. Oh my God. Oh, end the show. End it now.
Right.
Drop the mic here.
Well, let me do a little bit of housekeeping. Visit our website, languageofbromance.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at languageofbro. Email us at bros@languageofbromance.com. And what if you join our Patreon account like our two favorite people in the whole wide world, Wendy and Aaron?
Yeah. Oh my God, what if they weren't around?
I was just going to say that, like, what if they weren't in our Patreon group? Lonely.
I'm so lonely.
All right. Well, is there anything else before I close her out?
No, I'm good, sir.
All right. Well, that's all the bros have for this show. I'm Shawn.
And I'm Richard.
Remember, don't be a why. Be a why not.
And ask yourself the question, what if?
Richard, what if you didn't tell me to go watch Last House on the Left?
Then you wouldn't know what weird rapey murder porn looks like.